Chapter 3. There were curfews now. Jews were not allowed on the streets at night or in movie theaters, concert halls, or most other public places. Nazi cruelties had continued. Soldiers kept up their attacks on stores and homes, and beatings in the street became a common sight. Stormtroopers broke into homes and arrested many of the men. It was whispered that the men were being taken away to prison camps. Abraham's tailor shop on the first floor was now closed by government order. 12-year-old Sonia could not understand why all of this was happening. She still went to school, but Jewish children had been separated from the Gentiles. She was not allowed to talk to any of her friends who weren't Jewish. The day her best friend stopped speaking to her, Sonia came home crying. "Why, Mama, why?" she sobbed. "Do you remember the Purim story about Queen Esther and Haman?" Malka asked, holding Sonia. The girl nodded. Haman was the evil advisor to King Ahasuerus very long ago and wanted to kill all the Jews. But the kings fell in love with Esther, who was a Jew herself and very beautiful. So he married her and made her the queen. Esther then used her royal powers to save all the Jews. "I remember," Sonia said. "So now," Malka continued, "there is an evil man who is just like Haman, and his name is Adolf Hitler. He was as evil as Haman, but he can't hurt us if we are brave and act wisely. But we must have faith." Malka had begged her husband not to go out, but he refused to listen. He had gathered his coat and left hurriedly. He had gone out into the street, pitch black, since the smashing of the streetlights. It was late when he returned. Lisa strained to hear the conversation. "We must do something immediately. The chance may not come again." Lisa crept out of bed and stood in the hallway. She heard the words Holland and England. "They are not letting Jews out of Vienna," her father continued, "but they are allowing some trains to take Jewish children. Hundreds have already gone. My cousin Dora and Sid live in London. This could be our only chance." "How could we do it, even if we wanted?" "Mr. Rothbard said his wife refuses under any conditions to send their son on the train. He will give the son's place to us." Malka drew her breath with surprise and anguish. "So, you're asking me to send my precious daughters away?" "Malka, he has only one place, for only one child right now. We must send Lisa or Sonia. Rosie is over 18. She is ineligible." Abraham's voice was wretchedly unhappy. "As soon as we are able, we will find a way to send the others. It can't be the time for this. It can't be," Malka whispered in disbelief. Everyone in Vienna had been talking about the Kindertransport, the children's train. Far away in England, British citizens, Jews, and Christians alike, sensing terrible tragedy, had pressured their government to bring thousands of Jewish children to safety in England, to be placed in homes, farms, hostels. Every Jewish family in Vienna was desperate to get a seat on those trains, and now Papa had managed to get one ticket. Lisa heard footsteps, and her mother emerged from the kitchen. Malka smiled sadly at her daughter. "Go to bed, my darling. Go to bed." She kissed her mother on the cheek and walked back to her bedroom, where Sonia was sleeping peacefully next to her. Rag dolls. Lisa stared at her sister and wondered what the decision would be. The next morning, Lisa was ready and was reading at the kitchen table when her parents entered the room. "We have made a decision," her mother said. "We are sending you to England. We would like to send all of you, but we are forced to choose only one. You are strong, Lisla. You have your music to guide you. We will send you first. As soon as we can find enough money, we will send your sisters." Then Malka began to cry. Lisa was silent, and although she felt like crying herself, she wouldn't give in to her tears. There is an organization called the Bloomsbury House, which has arranged for Jewish children to come to England. "It's safer there," said her father. "Can't we go together? Can't we wait and go together?" Abraham looked tenderly at his daughter. "Sonia will come next, and then Rosie and Leo, and your mother and I will join you. Your cousins will take care of you until we get there." "Who are these cousins?" Lisa asked. "My aunt's cousins. I've never met them, but I'm told one of them is also a tailor in London." Lisa forced herself to conjure up an image of a handsome man in an elegant suit and hat. "Then I will work for him and send you money. You'll see." The Kindertransport was set to leave the week after Hanukkah. The family had lit the menorah each night and said their prayers. No friends came, since Jews were no longer allowed on the streets without a special pass. Lisa's bag had been packed for several days. She would take only one small suitcase, enough to hold a change of clothes and her good Shabbat dress. Then, one night, Abraham got the call. Lisa's train would be leaving the following morning. She awoke before anyone else and walked through the house, determined to remember everything that she loved. She stopped at the piano and brushed her fingers on the air above the keys. There was a copy of Claire de Lune on the piano. Guiltily, she rolled up and put it in her pocket. It was a silly luxury, she thought, since she had no space, but she couldn't help herself. Her mother came from the hall and put on her heavy coat. It's time to go. The West Benoff station was overflowing with people. Lisa had never seen it so crowded. Hundreds of desperate families rubbed shoulders to shoulder in panic and confusion, and pushed belongings of all shapes and sizes toward the waiting train. At the door to the car, Nazi soldiers in long brown coats shouted into bullhorns as they inspected suitcases and documents. When the crowd became too dense, the Jura family stopped for their final goodbyes. It had been decided that Rosie, Sonia, and Abraham would say goodbye first, and then Lisa's mother would walk her to the train. Abraham had been carrying the small suitcase for his daughter. When he stopped and handed it to her, Lisa could only clutch the handle and stand frozen. She felt that if anyone moved from her side, she would fall to pieces like a broken china figure. Abraham put his arm around Rosie, easing her toward Lisa, and the other two sisters embraced. "Don't forget to take the window seat so we can see you," her beautiful older sister shouted above the noise. "We'll all be together again soon. Be brave for us." Next, Abraham gently pushed his youngest daughter forward. Lisa kissed her, reached into her pocket, and placed Professor Ulysses' tiny gold charm around Sonia's neck. "Close your eyes and picture all of us together soon, and keep this for me until I see you again." Then Abraham took Lisa in a hug so tight that neither one could breathe. He was crying, something she could never remember seeing him do before. Finally, Melka took her hand and guided her through the crowd toward the platform. Children were lined up, waiting their turn to board. Some of them were Lisa's age, some older, some younger, carrying their cherished toys and dolls. Teary-eyed parents buttoned their coats, brushed their hair, and laced up their untied shoes. Malka looked at her daughter, who was waiting in line, and held her close. "You must make a promise." "What is it, Mama?" "You must promise me that you will hold on to your music. Please promise me that." "How can I?" Lisa sobbed. "How can I without you?" She dropped her little suitcase and embraced her mother tightly. "You can, and you will. Remember what I've taught you. Your music will help you through. Let it be your best friend, Leslie. And remember that I love you." "Move forward now," the guard commanded, and waved Lisa up the steep metal stair. At the moment, Malka slipped a little envelope in her daughter's hand. Lisa didn't even have a chance to glance at it. Before she knew it, she was separated from her mother and carried along onto the train car. Pushed up the steps and swept down the long corridor, Lisa quickly moved to a seat by the window. The glass was covered by the condensation of many fevered breaths, and she furiously wiped a clear patch with the sleeve of her coat. She thought she could see her mother and waved frantically, but she did not know whether her mother could pick her out. She yelled through the glass, "Mama!" but her voice was lost in the chorus of similar cries. Finally, there was a low clank releasing of the brakes. The train began to move, and then everything disappeared into the steam and the smoke. She looked down for the first time at the envelope she clutched in her hand, the last thing her mother gave her. She tore it open, and inside found a photograph of Melka standing straight and proud, taken on the day of Lisa's last recital at school. On the back was written, "Von der nicht vergessenen Mutter," from the mother who will never forget you. The train gathered speed. The building passed in a blur. The snowy fields came into view, and the city shrank in the distance.